Hello and welcome everybody to this Top of Mind webinar. My name is Samuel Hill and I lead product advocacy here at Mind. With me, as always, partner in crime. They've called us a lot of different things. I won't repeat them here in public. Landon Brown, our field CTO. Landon, how are you today, bud?
I'm great, Sam. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, I'm excited for this topic. Now, just to be candid with our audience, we're having a couple technical difficulties with a live webinar. For those of you in the tech industry, there is no good live event that ever happens exactly as you need it to. We have a super exciting guest that's going to be joining us for this webinar today. Her name is Christy Westfall. She is the Global Security Director for Spirent Communications. And I'm excited for this conversation, Landon. We're going to talk about, let's stop drowning our already overwhelmed analysts in alerts. Christy Westfall, welcome to our very live, currently going on in front of the entire internet webinar. How are you today, ma'am?
I think I have audio.
We do have audio. Looks like the technical issues have been resolved. Very grateful for that. And Christy, we're glad that you're here. Thank you for joining us today.
I am glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I think I owe you a Starbucks card or whatever your favorite coffee shop is local to your house. So grateful for you being here. And as we introduced you a little bit before you jumped in, Christy is the Global Security Director at Spirent Communications. And we're talking about something today that I know is near to all of our hearts. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month this month. And we have, there are just thousands of people who live on the front lines of keeping our organizations, our industries, our critical infrastructure, our way of life. There are so many places that these people keep our world safe just because of what they do. They have hands-on keyboards, protecting sensitive data and environment. And I know, Christy, this is a very important topic for you. Why don't you explain a little bit about why this is so near and dear to your heart?
So I've been doing security operations forever, and it doesn't seem to get any easier. It's just this constant battle of trying to stay on top of things and make sure that we're not burning out our analysts and giving them the tools they need to properly protect their organizations. So it's something that I really want to. It's a problem I want to solve, and I'm really glad to be here today to talk about it.
Yeah, and I know you're really leading the way, with your team and organization at Spirent. But just as a leader, what are some of the things that you look for in your team that kind of give you the, maybe the spidey senses as a leader that there might be something going on that burnout might be knocking out the door?
Yeah, that's easy. If you have a grumpy team, they're getting burned out, right? I feel like if they're talking about things that are causing problems and we're not addressing them as leaders, and they keep bringing them up and we're not addressing them, that's going to cause a lot of it too. Like if they've got a rule that is constantly causing false positives and all they do is spend time closing those things, we need to get on top of that, and we need to figure out what that roadblock is that's causing that false positive and fix it. Because if your analysts are trying to help, solve the problem, and we're not as leaders following up and fixing it, that's going to cause a problem. And then if they're just generally grumpy because they've been working an incident for 72 hours, a week long, months long, I mean, that burns you out really fast.
Now, Landon, you're a pretty grumpy guy. What are some signs for you that your team is grumpy?
Yeah, I think I love what Christy said around if we have a grumpy team, they're burnt out. And I think that grumpiness comes in all forms. I think when you're a leader in the organization, it's kind of your due diligence and your responsibility to understand, like, where is grumpiness occurring that's unrelated to work, but on the surface, but it does end up being related to work when you dig a little deeper. I think it's also our responsibility, especially from Christy, when I see your position, when I've done consulting at Trace3, it's kind of your responsibility to understand, like, what is our landscape of solutions we're offering to back to the business. It's our responsibility to understand how is the business evolving, but and also marrying those things to how we operate daily. Sometimes it's not necessarily the tech. Sometimes it's not necessarily what people have to do to operationalize tech, but it's sometimes the internal processes that our analysts have to deal with that maybe as a leader we aren't innovating enough on and need to refine, as well as technology evolves, just like the organization culture does too.
I know, Christy, you mentioned it at the top that it's not getting easier for most analysts out there across different companies. But what would a day-to-day, hour-to-hour thing look like for some of these women and men?
Yeah, and that it varies, right? Some organizations, your frontline analysts, all they do all day is triage stuff and escalate to a different team, right? But depending on how big they are, they could be doing all of the above. They could be doing the triage, trying to monitor all the events coming in, and then they've got to follow up, and then they have to pivot because sometimes the main tool they're using doesn't give them enough information to truly troubleshoot what's going on there. And then there's the struggle of what data do I have available to verify that information, right? And I will rant on that probably later. But it's all those things. So they're constantly trying to do balance between analysis and really understanding what's going on, and battling all the things that are being thrown at them. So the fire hose is coming. They're trying to do heads down, and it's our responsibility as leaders to kind of insert ourselves there and make sure that we're providing that cover so that they can do the analysis they need to do.
Right. Do you ever find, Landon, that sometimes these analysts maybe get a little bit territorial of, hey, don't interrupt my tools or my process. I got what I like to use and I like to do it this way or that way. And so sometimes even if you might have a good idea that potentially could make their life a little bit easier, do you ever feel like you get pushback?
Yeah, I think it's also a symptom of, listen, technology is growing in every direction. I mean, we hear AI all the time, but it's not just AI. It's CI/CD, it is software development, it is data security, it's cloud security, it's application security, like the tools themselves, as well as the infrastructure that we're using to build things that are bringing revenue to our business. Those are all growing as well. And then the teams have different responsibilities and shared responsibilities. And then sometimes it's not just about the solution they use to go solve that. It's, hey, I'm not used to you reaching out to me to fix that thing. Stop talking to me. And that also adds complexities in the culture in regards to how do we have shared responsibility and keep people happy at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, Christy, anything you want to add to that? I mean, it sounds like obviously analysts, they're smart humans. They do know what they're doing. They're experts in many ways. But do you ever get pushback from them when you're trying to make their life better?
I don't think I get pushback if I'm trying to make their life better. But if I don't listen to them and what their pain points are, that's when you get the pushback, right? So, Landon mentioned the full acronym soup of new tools that are out there. It's trying to, get them the training they need, right? That you just can't pop in a CPSM and say, okay, make some alerts. It doesn't work that way. You need to have like better understanding from the tool owner, like, what are you worried about? What is the risk that's, adheres here? What is the impact? What do I do if an alert fires? All those good things. And that it's a partnership. It's not a one-way push to start adding these data sources in and trying to make some sense of them in the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Hey, so also for those of you watching and listening, we do have a chat window open. Feel free to drop your questions or anything you want to ask Landon or Christy as we keep going here. I'm saying that because I was reminded, I'm seeing a question that came in over our chat window. Janice, thank you for this question. Christy, there are so many tools that are out there today. It seems like a new one hits the market every single day, but they're not actually moving the needle sometimes. Why do you think that is? What can we do to, I'm paraphrasing your question here, but what can they do to make sure that all these new tools that are being introduced are not adding to our analyst burden?
So this is where we need to take a step back. I'm a big proponent of having threat models for your organization to understand truly what is out there that you should be worried about. What are their tactics? What are their procedures? And then what do we have for controls to bump up against that? And where are we missing coverage, right? We shouldn't be just buying the next shiny thing and saying, oh, this is cool, it's going to solve all our problems, if we don't know how it already fits in our environment.
What would us marketers do if we didn't have people that just bought the next shiny tool to solve whatever big problem?
Shh, don't tell them I said that.
Okay.
It's my secret.
And all of our friends here on.
Well, it's literally, if you're a marketer and you're telling me you've got to have this shiny tool, you need to be able to solve a problem I have, right? And that's a discussion we have. If you're not, then I'm sorry, I have other things my core things I need to worry about. Don't keep throwing these things at me.
Hey, Christy, I'd love your thoughts on how much time do you spend before getting a new shiny tool? How much time do you spend organizationally defining how that tool permeates into the workflow of everybody that may be impacted by it?
Ooh, that's a good question. I couldn't put my thumb on it, but I would say a lot of time, because if I'm going to insert new control that is going to take a lot of time, I need to have that plan of like, who is going to manage this, right? Who is going to follow up on all the things that this tool spits out? And who's going to tune it? Who's going to manage it? All those things need to be covered, because you can't just buy a sim, plug it in, turn it on, let it go, and expect it to work. You need somebody to care and feed for it. You need someone to make sure, hey, is this really working as expected? And if it's not, then, let's fix that. And then somebody needs to deal with the events. And it's not just managing the events, it's following up on the events. Like, all right, this thing blew up. All right, now do I go talk to the person? Do I escalate this to HR? Do I, open up this investigation? What are the things I need to do? So all those factors have to be built into any tool anybody buys, because that is another big cause of burnout. It's like, oh, we'll just throw this thing in there and turn it on and a bunch of alerts, and then nobody does anything with it.
Well, that was what I was going to ask you too next. I mean, it seems like that's the real human element of frontline cybersecurity defense, is the being able to apply that critical thinking skill of, here's the response. Maybe there's a playbook that I have, maybe there's a certain checklist or procedure or SOP or whatever that is, but they still have to use the knowledge that they've built, either been trained in, that they've learned and acquired, or however best works in your organization. But if all they're doing all day is closing repetitive, alert tickets that come out of whatever tool is just firing off random things, I could imagine they would feel really wrung out by the end of the day.
Well, think about like when you have to do, I just had this, I was cleaning up my own AWS account, and I'm like, oh crap, I've got a bunch of junk out there, and just trying to go through and tediously clean that out. The thought of it daunted me, right? I didn't want to do that. And so I don't want my analysts to do that either. If you're doing tedious stuff, then there's probably a reason why we have so much of that tedious stuff. Either it's a bad rule, or it's not working right, and somebody needs to be kind of shepherding that process. Again, listen to your analysts. And if you're an analyst and you're just sitting there happily closing these things all day long, get out of your seat, be curious, ask questions, think, is this right? Use those critical thinking skills, because this is where we get better at monitoring. It's a team sport. We use our brains, and that's what I will say it. AI will not replace us. We need people to continue to poke holes in things, because this just doesn't seem right. What's my gut telling me?
Yeah, and it's that gut that usually can either get you started in the right direction, or maybe indicate something. The number of times that I've listened to my gut and it turns out to be generally right. I mean, it's probably it's very high. It's a very high percentage. But Landon, I know you talk to a lot of different types of companies and have been in different places across a lot of stops in your career. What do you think about? I mean, a lot of leaders try to build that trust between their analysts, so they can tell them, hey, this workflow is just not working right, or this is just an overwhelming, or hey, we made this change earlier on in our change control process, and now here's the downstream effect, and having that clear communication. What are some of the things that leaders can do to make sure they've built that trust so that their frontline clearly communicate problems if they arise?
Yeah, I think I think being a leader takes a lot of humility, but I think it's also a humility in the way we operate internally. I think, when we look at just how analysts work, analysts are in an analyst position for a reason. They're usually tinkerers and problem solvers. They usually have some kind of career aspiration. A lot of the times it could be in a disciplined area as well. There's all of those human factors to account for. But I think as a leader, you're also in charge of ensuring that the political and cultural structure of how we've built out our security team versus our governance team versus how that team coordinates with the privacy team is built in such a way that there aren't barbed wires between them. And I think when I have done consulting in the past, that's one of the biggest barriers to entry of, hey, we'd have customers come to us and when I was during my time at Trace3 and say, hey, we want to buy services for you to reconstruct our data security program. They pay the money, we get in, and the entire culture is against it, right? And I think it's part of, and I'm sure Christy has a lot to add here around, it's kind of your responsibility to ensure that the way we're evolving tech is also at the same speed we're evolving our workflow. And I think tech goes a lot into that. A lot of organizations are buying the shiny new thing. I think there's a lot of very, very smart leaders like Christy who says we don't need the very shiny new thing, but if we do need it, there is a lot of recursory work that we need to do to manage and improve the evolution of how these teams communicate as well.
Yeah, it's a partnership. It's not just a partnership inside your SOC. It's a partnership outside the SOC, right? If all the pieces of the security program don't work well together, your SOC is just going to be, not working well at all, because that's kind of the funnel, is where the everything else comes in from the business, and part of the business is the rest of the security team, right? So that culture has to be cohesive, or it reflects on how we monitor things in the SOC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is a question I know I've actually been excited to ask you as we get into this conversation, Christy, because you're a rare cybersecurity leader who your team still allows you to put hands on keyboard. I know sometimes for some cyber teams, you want your executive leaders to go be executives and go do all of that stuff. And that's very, very necessary, very needed. But you don't want them actually getting hands on keyboard, because stuff weirdly breaks when they do. But that's not you. You are a hands-on keyboard type of leader. You actually like to get into the weeds a little bit. So I think it gives you a unique perspective. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We're all, every month here at Mind is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, because we appreciate the hard work that women and men do. What would be an appropriate way? What do they actually want or need on the front lines? What could we give them as a gift for this Cybersecurity Awareness Month that would actually make it a true celebration of their hard work? What do they want and need to make their life better?
Ooh, so no one's going to like this answer, but start over. Basic blocking and tackling in the organization, right? Cohesive roadmaps between IT and security. Like, I want all my systems patched. I want an inventory of all my systems and applications, so I know who to go bug when something hits the fan. I want that. I want information and visibility that I don't have today, that I have to fight for, right? And if that's my big answer, that's my big greenfield answer. But I think the short answer is just continue to prioritize those roadblocks that they're running into. And a lot of that is going to be what I just talked about. Like, I've got this device I've never seen before on the network, and it's popping up all these alerts. Who do I go bug? And it's not in the asset inventory that I have available. It's those types of like annoying things. It's like, okay, I want to chase this, but I don't have anything to go chase it with. So it's giving them the information, the visibility, and it's also making sure that your rules that you have are working right, because we get so into the monitoring piece, we're not doing the analysis or maybe management that care and feeding of the rules themselves, right? And those will change over time. Logs will change over time. Data sources will change over time. Somebody needs to keep their eyes on that to make sure that we're giving the right events to our analysts as well.
Christy, I thought you were going to say more pizza parties, perhaps an ice cream social.
Pizza's good, but I'm going big.
All right. So like you. Hey, Landon, anything you want to add to that other than a pizza party? I mean, that was my idea. So if you got better ideas than that, lay them on us. What do the cybersecurity analysts actually want or need for Cybersecurity Awareness Month?
Yeah, I think Christy is right in the essence that there are structural things and things that if we could give something to the analysts, it's the ability to not have to chase things constantly, right? And I think that just kind of goes hand in hand with, how do we not burn out our analysts? Our responsibility to not do that. And so I think I don't want to overwrite Christy's answer here. I actually really, really like her perspective on what analysts actually need. I will say I'll never pass up a pizza party. So Christy, if you're having an analyst celebration, I'll take a slice.
Okay, come on over.
And it sounds like, obviously every system is perfectly designed to produce the results that it gets, as the famous adage attributed to Peter Drucker would go. However, so you have systems in place, you have tools, and you have processes, and you have people, you have all the technology, you have all the things. And you said something earlier, really caught my ear, actually, Christy, is kind of start at the basics and kind of starting over. Now, I realize you probably can't just turn everything off, cancel every license agreement, and just start with a fresh slate. But if you could start over from the very beginning in today's world, with the threats that you know about, the modeling that you've done, the tools you're aware of, the research that you have done, how would you go about building a modern data security practice?
Understand what your business is, first and foremost. Like how, what technology is going to be best to support that, right? And once you've identified that, everything just kind of organically comes out of that, right? And then that also helps you build your risk management program. This kind of goes back to the next shiny tool. Does it overall reduce risk in your organization if you buy X thing, right? It's not just tools. I need to understand what policies do I need in place? What kind of people do I need? What processes do I need on top of the technology to be able to make everything run? And, again, keep track of what you're doing. Have some function to identify all the things. So you're not just like, oh, hey, what's that new thing that just showed up? This whole new AWS account or whatever it is, whatever surprise comes up that day. Just so I was just listening to another podcast that was talking about bad guys like to hide in the dark corners of your network. And if you've got technology that's running and it's legacy and it's like, oh, don't touch that. We don't want to break that. Guess what? That's what the bad guys love to hide in. So the more you can shine light on those things, the better.
Yeah, Christy, I kind of a follow-on question here. A lot of the times I hear from our customers and even some of our prospects that we're working with today that one of the things they're most scared of is vendor lock-in. It's building processes around a specific technology. It's building our teams around a specific technology. It's not building the team with a core set of foundational and basic kind of operational models that can serve any technology. And there's always going to be a little overlap in those things. Would you think that, as you think of rebuilding the analyst role to avoid kind of analyst burnout, do you think that plays a bigger portion than maybe some leaders realize as well, as avoiding areas of vendor lockout?
Yeah, I completely support that. I don't like to be tied into a vendor for a long period of time because you may be thrilled about, and don't take this personally, I'm not talking you may be thrilled with technology of the vendor today, but then your team may change, the vendor, direction, the roadmap may change, and then you're stuck. And then it's like, now what do I do? I'm not getting what I need, and you've got another 2 or 3 years on your contract. So being able to understand what am I trying to achieve foundationally from a technology perspective, and then building everything else around that with the flexibility to be able to pivot, I think that makes everybody a little bit more comfortable and reduces that risk of any one thing taking you out at any given time.
And I know from myself personally, as an individual contributor in ways, I like it when I understand kind of the overall why and kind of the direction that we're heading. And so having that kind of clear vision and direction from my executive leadership team to say, this is what we're trying to achieve. Now, I might have creative ideas or ways to go about proposing ideas or solutions for that or ways to achieve that. But kind of having that overall goal of this is the business need. Here's what we have to get done. And then we can start designing whatever process, technology, people combination to achieve that. Have you found that to be true for your team, Christy?
Yeah, so absolutely. Because I shouldn't, when I looked, so I've been in this role for 2 years. Any role I go into, first thing I do is what's the lay of the land, right? And what have I got and what am I missing? And that's kind of builds my program going forward. So I don't like to jump in and go, oh, we need whatever, because I don't know. I don't know yet. And I need to take that time to understand, okay, well, what's going to best support this organization? Because every organization is different, right? And so you may need core tools, but it may not be this technology, maybe this one over here. So I think you need to understand that first.
Yeah, no way. And that's a great way to go about it, because then I think that also lowers the burnout too, when you're not just throwing random projects, contraptions, devices, technologies at teams when they don't understand why or what the overall big picture goal is. So, Christy, any final thoughts for us as we get wrapping up here?
I will just say, let's we tend to forget the risk management thing. I touched on that already, but remember, everything we do should reduce risk. And I think we get so wrapped in the let's make whatever thing we've got work that we're not looking at the big picture. So we need to make sure we're always keeping that in mind, and that's how we march forward. And Samuel, I like how you mentioned the explaining the why. Like, we all need to understand why we're doing this, or it's just nobody wants to do it. So I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah. Landon, final thoughts from you?
No, very thankful, Christy, for making the time to come and join us and educate us today. I know we have the longer we're here building solutions, the longer our assumptions grow. So every opportunity that we have to sit down and hear from you and hear from our customers and hear from the industry is literally invaluable to us. So we hope that it's been valuable for everybody listening, and we've certainly learned a lot ourselves. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Well, as we wrap up here for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, for all of you who are hands on keyboard, keeping companies and systems safe, we see you, we thank you, and I hope you enjoy the slice of pizza. For Christy Westfall and Landon Brown, I'm Samuel Hill, and that's all for now.